Well, this is what you want to be ready for heading into the weekend. Even though the rain seems to be letting up, that's when the ground can really start coming down. On SR 14 Friday evening, a lot of rocks, just like this one, came down and hit 2 cars. This slide's not big enough to close the highway, but Washington State Patrol says some of these rocks went through the roof of one car, flattened a tire on another. Nobody was hurt, but geologists will warn you where there's loose little rocks, there's bound to be bigger ones.
Generally, if we see a couple rocks or boulders on the road, it tells us that things are starting to move on the slope, and then we keep an eye on that area.
PSU Professor Scott Burns has been keeping an eye on the ground around here for decades. His department has been mapping out where the land is most likely to move. Around Portland, it's the West Hills, Mount Scott, out in the gorge. Well, Friday's slides were more active around the rest of the region. This one near Highway 101 in Lincoln County. A bigger one in the southern Willamette Valley on Highway 138. Burns says expect more slides as the climate continues to change and we get more weather like what we've just had.
What happens is the evaporation of water, seawater, increases, and so the atmospheric masses have more water in them. And then when they hit on land, you have huge amounts of water coming in. We're going to be getting more and more of these pineapple expresses or atmospheric rivers.
While landslides are the last of the natural hazards you can't get covered with insurance, that could change in the next 5, maybe 10 years as geologists compile even more landslide data.
All the state surveys are working with the U.S. Geological Survey to come through and give the data to the actuaries and the insurance companies, and they will come through with landslide insurance.
State troopers tell me there are more slides and even bigger slides as you head east on SR 14. Don't know when those will be cleared up, but we are told that that big slide near Highway 138 in Elkton, well, that's going to take until Tuesday to get that cleaned up.
So, Megan, what damage are you finding along the Salmon River?
Well, Deb, there are flooded roads on just about every corner of this area, and you can see that's actually sinking vehicles. Like you mentioned, there's a fire engine here that is just about halfway underwater, and behind that, a semi-truck is submerged in the water as well. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Office tells me they have not closed any roadways around here yet, but deputies are patrolling and communicating with ODOT to see if that needs to change at any time. We witnessed a lot of cars trying to drive through the water, which first responders do not recommend. Deputies say they already witnessed one car hydrolock from damage. I spoke with people who live here as well. One homeowner says with rain like this, there are bigger concerns than flooding.
Hillside movement, tree loss, landslides with the water saturation. It's always nice to not get wind behind it. Hopefully there's not going to be any wind. The last few nights have just been downpours and absolute wind gusts and wind gales. So, it starts to make you nervous when you're sleeping, whether a tree's going to come down on you because of all the rain and water.
In Tillamook County, emergency management tells us there are a few detours, and they're asking those coming out to this area to stay cautious. As you mentioned, at the Nesquin Creek RV Park, about half of campers evacuated this morning and the rest stayed behind. The director said he has never seen impacts like this before, but they are watching water start to recede along the rivers. And coming up tonight at 5, I'll have more on concerns from homeowners who are still trying to recover from those wildfires last year, as well as an update on driving conditions in this area.
The wife talked with us just a few hours ago. She says her husband was meeting her for her lunch break when something caught their eye. That's something.
I think I saw a camper floating down the river.
Turns out it was a camper floating down the Trask River.
It was scary, the water was right to the edge.
Mariana Travis and her husband took this video. She says they were a little nervous watching this camper moving so quickly and knowing there was nothing between them and the water.
It was like a spin on the water and the camper started twisting around. It was spooky because it's also no guards along the road. So you could think if the water takes you, you could be right there inside.
That area around the Trask River did get about a half a foot of rain.
Every year it kind of floats, but I think this is the worst I've seen.
Mariana says that there were officers nearby. They are just hoping that the camper was abandoned and that no one was hurt. So far, we haven't received any reports of any fatalities associated with this storm.
Fairview Lake, which is flooding backyards right now. And Francis, part of that flooding issue is actually something Katu investigated this summer.
Yes, back in July, K2's Angelica Thornton discovered a pump site that's responsible for this entire area, but it couldn't be accessed due to safety concerns from a homeless camp. Now, officials were worried about flooding, and now it seems like those fears are coming true.
It's been moving up like 2 inches an hour up the yard.
This Fairview Lake resident's backyard is flooded after today's rainfall.
The dock there that's underwater, that's normally part of our backyard, so it's probably 15 feet, 20 feet up. We're mostly concerned about damage to the property damage to the backyard. We're hoping that Multnomah County Drainage District can get the pumps running because it really could flood the whole area.
Normally, there's a pump that MCDD runs to control the water flow, but
those have shut off because of some homeless activity.
Our staff has definitely reported gunfire in the vicinity. They've told us that they're unwilling to go back into the woods near that station because it's not safe. There are a lot of campers, and there were a lot of abandoned autos and vehicles and RVs and so on that made it impossible for us to get our equipment in to operate our pump station.
And for homeowners who are concerned about flooding,
you can't control nature. You oftentimes only react to it.
Josh Anderson worked in waterproofing services for over a decade.
Brand new home with a brand new remodel might get totally ruined, and they need to spend tens of thousands of dollars to try to recover from that. It could cost you a fortune.
The district says they made quite a bit of progress today, and they had towing trucks out there all day. And then over the weekend, they're going to put up some concrete barriers so that crews can get in there and try to get the pump up and working.